Hello, and welcome to Virtual Investor Conferences. My name is Cecilia, and on behalf of OTC Markets, we're very pleased you have joined us for our next live presentation from Active Energy Group PLC. Before I introduce our speaker, a few points to note. Please submit your questions in the question box to the left of the slides. If you're interested in scheduling a meeting with Active Energy Group, please click on the Meetings tab found on the left navigation bar. You will be able to view the company's availability and submit a meeting request. On a final note, all of today's presentations will be recorded and available for 24/7 replay. At this point, I'm very pleased to welcome Michael Rowan, Chief Executive Officer of Active Energy Group, which trades on the OTCQB venture market under the symbol ATGVF and on the AIM under the symbol AEG. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you, Cecilia, and good morning to everybody in the United States. And I'm very pleased to be here today. What I'd like to do, I think, is run through you a summary of the opportunity that we've undertaken to convert waste to value and hopefully provide an immediate solution to hard to decarbonize industries. And I think along the way, creating rural jobs. What I'd like to do at the outset, I think, is just run through and describe for you, obviously, Active Energy itself, and describe for you our revolutionary coal switch project, its key target markets, and I think run through our go-to market strategies. In short, Active Energy produces a next-generation biomass pellet, which we know as coal switch. And rather than looking at other complex carbon reduction technologies, AEG has tried to answer the very simple question of why not make a better pellet using wasted resources that are already around us. The pellet has been designed to have improved heating performance versus certainly existing pellets and biomass products, and hopefully addressing the increasing environmental regulation which nearly all industries now face. The development of coal switch has been centered upon this premise, and the goal for us is to use low-value waste wood residuals at all times. Our goal now is to scale industrial production, getting up to volumes, and address the market opportunities that are now before us. In short, what is coal switch? Well, in short, it's definitely a better pellet. We produce more gigajoules of heat in each ton of fuel, probably at least a 15% premium to existing white pellet. We reduce emissions by nearly 100% compared to coal, and when blended with coal, we also see only a 7% reduction in the energy values. The fuel is hydrophobic, which means that it's water resistant and it can be transported like coal. It can use existing truck, train, and shipping infrastructures, and most usefully, it can handle like coal in boilers without significant amounts of capital expenditure. Our pellet has key environmental advantages over white pellet, focusing on using those low-value waste residuals, which means sawdust, tree bark, tree tops, and branches, as its core feedstock. But in short, coal switch is a drop-in coal replacement for industries that rely on coal power for production of goods like cement, steel, and pulp and paper. The underlying technology has actually been developed over a number of years and through a reference plant in Maine, which has also proven out the technology. We first produced volumes from that reference plant in Maine in 2021. Those samples have been tested and are continuing to be tested across the US, Europe, and Japan. And we've tested not only the performance benefits of the fuel, but also tested its co-firing qualities when with coal. In all instances, we've seen a consistency in improved performance of the burn data. But in demonstrating the technology, we've also been able to show how easily coal switch can fit into production and consumption cycles, which are obviously very established in the marketplace. The reference plant, which you can see in the photos on the bottom right, it has very modest capacity, and it was designed to produce up to sort of 1.5 tons an hour. We've used this knowledge to redesign and reconfigure a larger production reactor, which is going to be looking to run at around 10 tons an hour. And this has been achieved without significant additional capex. Our engineering partner, Player Design, has a proven track record in the construction and engineering of pellet plants. And I think we want to emphasize that no one else currently makes this fuel. Nobody else has had the access to the proprietary know-how that we have developed over many years. And with Player Design right now, no one else has the technical knowledge and experience to construct these type of plants. So I'm sure that you're all aware that the lumber industry is not necessarily the most efficient or environmentally friendly. In fact, in reality, probably about a third of a tree is used for actual traditional lumber processes, but the rest can invariably be discarded or gone to waste. And it is that waste that we focus on and try to turn that into economic value. In doing so, we believe that by creating these additional revenue streams, we are creating new opportunities for joint venture partners. We can boost rural jobs and we can boost economic development, all at the same time as simultaneously removing methane spewing rotting biomass. We've tested the process also using other types of timber waste and fuels, including, for example, palm oil residues from Malaysia, another important future market for AEG and its technology. I've mentioned that we've been doing this for some time, and on this slide we try and summarize out some of the traditional work we've been doing over the last 3 years. We are now on the cusp of commercial production, but it has taken a while to piece this together. We've effectively, over the last 2 years, built 2 reference plants, and the second really went from permit to pellet in under 14 weeks. But we have delivered fuel, and we are currently delivering fuel to prospective customers on a weekly basis right now. The fuel testing has become, I think, one of the key factors that we need to, and prerequisites that we need to do in order to get customers engaged with us. And we're very much in that process right now. The testing in the first instance could be lab testing, just to the quality of the fuel, or it can be burn testing. And as if you look at the bottom of that slide there, that's a sample of a furnace burner that was used in Utah about 9 months ago to demonstrate and test our fuel over a week-long testing period. I thought this page would be quite interesting just to re-emphasize exactly the process that we're trying to address. The picture at the top shows a typical lumber yard with the waste fuel and the waste residues right next to the lumber logs that you see as part of the day in, day out process. Currently in the US, there's probably over 60 million tons of waste lumber created annually, and that's the market that we're really focusing on trying to address. The second image, I think, shows our pellet and shows exactly what we produce and the type of fuel that will be transported in bulk via road, rail, or shipping if it's going internationally. And thirdly, I wanted to emphasize the type of current industrial plant operations we're trying to address. If you look at those open storage conditions, you can clearly see that you need a fuel that is hydrophobic. It can cope with traditional wet environments. White pellet cannot do that without dedicated storage facilities. Now, I'm sure we're all aware of the increasing decarbonisation goals that the world faces. The important thing that we wish to emphasise and about our opportunity is that we're bringing a solution to the marketplace where 3 external factors are really setting the table for us. Firstly, there are many of our target industries that are required to reduce emissions under various state and federal regulations. Secondly, many of those same industries are now being offered significant incentives and funding to accelerate decarbonisation. Thanks, for example, in large part to the $370 billion in funding that's now being made available under the Inflation Reduction Act. And thirdly, of course, many of these companies in many industries have already set voluntarily environmental targets for themselves via their own ESG plans or their own net zero pledges. But in saying all of that, I think it's worth reminding ourselves that coal consumption remains strong. And this slide here gives a summary of really the US consumption in the marketplace, showing in particular obviously the focus of coal largely just around power generation, but also its other continuing industrial processes. We believe that coal will, while it may well be eventually be replaced, it's going to be a long process to get there, and it's going to remain a key component of fuel supply for some time to come. Given the co-firing properties of coal switch, our focus is to offer immediate environmental solutions for current coal consumers. In reality, of course, from an AEG perspective, given where we are, we can only focus on very modestly the other industrial section that's on that chart. And even tackling that market, if we can achieve all of that, we will have created a dramatic effect to the marketplace and obviously to the emissions goals that are being achieved. We obviously already are seeing an opportunities in this market where volumes, if we could match investor demand, are going to be significant for us. As a reminder, it's probably worth reminding ourselves that power generators and heavy industry today are having to make some already tough decisions. Are they balancing between shutdown or expensive investments in carbon capture and cleaning technologies to maintain plant asset life? We think we can provide a solution, and this is how we can assist with the existing consumption of coal. Now, this data actually comes from the co-firing testing that I emphasized a little bit earlier under the STEP program, which was coordinated by the University of Utah and involved Rocky Mountain Power. This test used an industrial furnace, and we co-fired coal and coal switch in various conditions and various quantities over a period of time. I think from a perspective of looking at these results, I think what you want to see is the immediate drop in benefits. There was no changes to the handling of the fuel in the bow mills or in the furnaces. And when you mix it with a mix of, say, 25% coal switch and 75% coal, you only see a minimal drop in heating values. But what you do see is a significant drop in emissions values, or significant improvement, I'm sorry. And those emissions improvements are absolutely critical. We can cut the NOx and the SOx, and we can significantly reduce the volumes of ash. We've got a number of other tests right now underway, both in US and in Europe and Japan. But in each instance, we are seeing a consistency of these results, and that's very important for the future of coal switch. So where is the opportunity for us? We see obviously two primary markets for the fuel. Number one is obviously in the industrial market, and the second is probably in the heating and retail pellet market. We are already in discussions with companies in each of these sectors, both in the US and internationally. Our challenge will be to produce volumes of production to meet the indicative demand, because at the moment we're only dealing with small scale test volumes, and even with the first plant running, we're still only going to be in test volume proportions. And with that in mind, of course, therefore, we're having to be realistic in our commercial conversations with our forthcoming partners. We discuss with companies on a plant-by-plant basis what can be achieved. So, for example, we're in discussion with one plant down in Virginia, which burns about 150,000 tons a year of coal. In that case, coal switch could be an outright replacement for their fuel volumes. In other instances, we're talking to power generation facilities that burn millions of tons of coal, where actually a blended mix would be in far a better way the more sensible solution. We're also trying to work with other industries that really do have tough environmental regulations upon them, including the cement business and obviously the pulp and paper business. But we also want to remind yourself that producing a better pellet, just with all the credentials that we've talked about, also presents for us a retail market opportunity, which is not insignificant. This would allow, obviously, consumers to have a genuine environmental choice in the purchase of the fuel. And we've obviously started conversations with opportunities around that. In each case, our drop-in replacement capability is an immediate, enduring competitive advantage for industries that are seeking that CO2 reduction without the costly capex and without carbon capture technologies. So now I want to just turn commercially to where we are as a corporate as of December the 1st. First and foremost, obviously, our focus right now is getting to commercial scale production at our plant in Ashland in Maine, and that is our priority. We're working with PDI and we're using their site, and I include on this slide some recent photographs of the facility, and also provide a sense of the geography of the opportunities, because obviously it provides for an infrastructure fit that can go both within the United States and internationally. We are still remain very confident that we're going to get fuel coming out from industrial portions by the end of Q1 2023. And that obviously will mark a landmark for scaled fuel production volumes and a template for future production of and development of the technologies underlying it. The site itself is in the midst of traditional lumber areas, so we have no shortage of feedstock opportunities, and we are able to interlink with existing infrastructure and communications infrastructure in the area, both road, rail, and obviously ports. Our aim is that this plant will initially work towards a very modest production capacity of 30,000 tonnes a year, but that will increase ultimately to 100,000 tonnes a year. The site has obviously had to take some preparation. And as part of that, we've obviously had to work towards making sure that we meet all the environmental credentials. And we've been working with PDI in that environmental groundwork. We've attained, obviously, the relevant FSC certifications for the waste material we use at Ashland. And we've obviously subsequently acquired various confirmations through analysis like life cycle analysis from California on the entire production process and the benefits that it can produce. That particular report did focus on our CO2 emissions and specifically analysed what were our benefits versus existing fossil fuel production thoughts. As a reminder, we could show that we have a 99% improvement on CO2 emissions against coal and 97% improvement against natural gas. But Ashland will be important for us for a number of reasons. And I mentioned earlier that the concept of getting the technology up and running is key. To demonstrate small-scale plants that can be slotted in to existing other sources of waste lumber that could turn into fuel. And our focus will be on manufacture and supply of that fuel. We recognize right now that the goal has got to be speed to market, and we probably can't move quickly enough on our own basis. So we're adopting a strategy of the introduction of the technology to other small-scale production facilities, i.e. those that could produce 100,000 tonnes a year or around that level at existing lumber mills and existing operations. In each instance, obviously, in those cases, we will have a ready supply of waste, and obviously we'll also be able to directly assist those facilities with their additional specific and environmental issues. But for AEG, the prime focus is to get the technology established quickly, to get the volumes of fuel up and running quickly so that we can create the revenue streams we've been aiming to achieve. I mentioned the fact that the opportunity is more than just beyond the state of Maine and the Northeast. We're obviously looking and already in discussions with other regions in the US, which have been not only traditional biomass centers, but other areas which aren't always initially considered as part of that area. New England has been and remains our key focus. But I think we do see a complement of that moving not only just from that region, but down to the Gulf Coast regions and also to the West Coast. In each case, there are ready supplies of waste lumber. It's already an environmental issue. And if we could assist it and turn it into a productive and environmentally friendly fuel, that will clearly create opportunities for all parties. Finally, let me just turn to the economics of how we operate, and from an industry perspective and from a plant perspective. The white pellet industry is obviously an established global business with over probably 40 million tonnes a year currently being shipped around the world. And those pricing metrics are well established, as I show on this slide here. In reality, the US is by far and away the largest supplier and manufacturer of this fuel, even though it's probably one of the lowest current consumers of it. So we now present an interesting opportunity to be able to create the domestic market that we're talking about. We use the pricing here really as a benchmark for coal switch pricing going forward. I remind you, obviously, that we believe we have a premium fuel, and that by right should obviously command a premium pricing. The independent pricing metrics I've just shown here, I think, show, like all other energy prices we've had in 2022, what the opportunities have created. The pricing of fuel has gone up dramatically. I would point out it probably has come down a little bit in recent weeks. But as we go into winter, right now, we are certainly still seeing an incredible level of inquiry for asking for how we can get fuel as quickly as we can. We do believe that this pricing trend will continue for at least the next 12 to 24 months, and ultimately that the long-term market positioning will remain as it is. Secondly, I think on this page, I wanted just to summarize the plant economics and just give you a suggestion when I said we're trying to build small plants, what the kind of capital intensity is. We're looking at maybe producing a plant for a region of $28 million, which is a very small scale plant producing 100,000 tons a year of fuel. If you take a very modest pricing at say $300, you end up with a healthy EBITDA within a very short period of time. In reality, we believe we can make these plants quicker and cheaper using our technology, and it's certainly way quicker than anything that's already in the market to produce existing pellet opportunities. As I've mentioned, we do look to expand this opportunity not only on a wholly owned basis, but on a joint venture basis. And then when you look at the economics of that and we see the returns on capital, you're seeing a healthy north of 30% in each instance. We're looking for speed to market. We're having conversations with those commercial partners right now, and we're getting a very positive response from future partners who want to get involved with production of that fuel. The joint ventures may add some superior economics, but fundamentally they will help both sets of parties create a fuel and get it in the marketplace. Finally, I'm sure this is aware, but even though we're talking about a fuel based in North America with a focus in North America, this is part of a global market as well. And when we look at where we think coal switch can move to, we believe that it can become the market standard for next generation black pellet that certainly the market has not seen before. There's certainly no shortage of customer opportunity right now, and our focus in the next 12 months is to prove the technology on a commercial scale, on an industrial scale, and deliver to fuel customers, or both in the United States and internationally. Right now, prospective customers are talking to us, and they are already talking about volumes that are well in excess of anything we could initially produce, but we are looking to obviously expand our production as quickly as possible. From this image above, what you can see is our goal is to have at least sort of 3 production centers over the next sort of 24 to 36 months, where we're able to deliver fuel both domestically in the US, but also internationally to the more established markets in Europe and Japan. We are extremely confident as to where we are today, and we're very excited about the opportunity that AEG can present. That ends the formal part of the presentation. I can see there's been quite a few questions coming through, so forgive me, I need to now go through those. And I will try and answer the questions as we run through over the next 5 minutes or so. The first question I've been asked is our capital position and funding our future growth plans. Right now, we are financed through to create that first plant and get it in production in Ashland. And we have certainly sufficient working capital to meet all of those requirements. Our future growth opportunities we are now being presented with various different options, both from the US and from the Europe, looking at either a combination of dedicated project finance debt for future plants or a future expansionary capital, working capital for the PLC itself. In any event, we are extremely confident to be able to complete everything we've initially set as our goals over the next 6 to 9 months. I've been asked the next question of, is there enough feedstock available to make your pellets? I think in short answer, yes. An example of that would be that just very modestly in the state of around Ashland, we already in conversations with one facility that could supply us over 1 million tons a year of sawdust. I mentioned during the presentation there is a lot of feedstock available, and for us that's obviously the key. I've been asked what our milestones are for 23. I think in very short order, priority 1, plant up and running, operational at the end of Q1, and delivering the fuel out to customers and showing the technology in scalable and consistent operation. Once this plant operates, it operates on a 24/7 basis, and the intention is obviously it will then be running and expanding going forward. So to me, my major milestone is at the end of that first quarter and expansion thereafter and getting customer acquisition beyond that. I was asked about, are we able to tap into tax credits and incentives? The short answer on our analysis and discussions with our advisors at the moment is yes. We do meet a lot of requirements for the clean technology, and we are already in conversations with various prospective partners on that topic. I've also been asked the question about IP. We do own proprietary IP around the original reactors. We are continuing to develop IP around the new reactors. The technology runs in a twofold form. It's one in terms of the technology within those reactors, but also the software and the know-how around it, and the materials handling and all of and other ancillary businesses. We do have that IP. It's already filed in the United States. It's filed in Canada, and it's also under final applications into the EU. I've been asked a question about international interest. We do have a lot of international interest from countries that are also looking at areas of waste wood. I mentioned in the presentation, Southeast Asia has been an area of particular interest, both in Malaysia, where we got a patent in the summer, in Thailand and Indonesia. But we're also getting inquiries from Africa and from Europe right now, who all have a common problem of looking for, first and foremost, a way to deal with waste wood and those issues, and secondly, a way that they can potentially cut their current heavy consumption of coal and to meet various requirements, including obviously the latest declarations from COP27. I think those were the core questions that I had through the presentation. Are there any more questions? Well, as there don't appear to be any more questions, I'd like to thank everybody for their time. I'm available, as people know, for one-on-ones, and you can see the details at the end of the presentation if you wish to email. More than welcome to follow through in any other additional questions or inquiries. Many thanks for your time, and I look forward to talking again soon.